If you own a short-term rental, this is the one podcast I want to make sure you do not miss. How to save tens of thousands of dollars with the STR loophole and cost segregation. Hey, Team Fearless, I just want to take a quick break from this podcast to talk about funding your furnishings. If you're listening to the Fearless Investor podcast, then you probably want to do the Airbnb arbitrage model. Reason being, it's a low barrier of entry, right? $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 to buy furniture with someone else's property. And sure, you can use your own bank account or you can raise the money at a low interest rate from a friend or family member. But wouldn't you rather get that money at 0% interest, aka free money? That's what my friends at Pathway Financial can do for you. Pathway Financial helps people like you get 0% interest credit cards so you don't have to have the financial stress of putting down a ton of money up front for your deals. Think about that for a second. How many arbitrage deals could you do if money was not a concern? Well, that could be the exact possibility with Pathway Financial's help. Get a free quote from them today. Go to fearlesskyle.com/pathway financial to find out how much you can get pre-approved for right now. And don't worry, it won't have any impact on your credit score because it's a soft inquiry. So go once again to fearlesskyle.com/pathway financial and get that free quote. All right, Team Fearless, I'm telling you right now, we have been talking about the STR loophole for a few years now, and I've had Ryan Baker on our podcast. And after talking to all of these CPAs and all these professionals about it, I've gone straight to my CPA and I've said, are we taking advantage of the STR loophole? His response a couple years ago was, what's that? I told him, you need to look at this. He took a look at it. He kind of had his doubts and he said, I just don't know how legitimate it is. I said, well, I need you to do me a favor and just look into it. I know you're not the guy. I know you can't do an official cost seg, but I do need you to just take a look at it. Well, he finally came back to me and said, hey, I think I found the guys. They tell me that you can save tens of thousands of dollars with a lot of your properties, and I want to get you connected. And they are Cost Seg Authority. We have the CEO, Rhett Gagon, on the show today, and we're going to take my actual properties. I take 5 properties and I show you exactly how he was able to save us so much money. All in all, I'm spending right around $10,000, but we're going to be saving close to 6 figures in taxes. Now, I'm not saying 6 figures of depreciation. I'm saying 6 figures of money back in my pocket. So I give you $1, you give me back $5 to $10. That's exactly what this trade looks like. And we're going to show you right now here with Rhett. Please, please, please make sure that you listen to this full podcast and take a look at what Rhett and his team are doing by scheduling a call with Cost Seg Authority. All right, everyone, welcome into the Fearless Investor Podcast. Team Fearless, excited for you all to listen to this very powerful podcast today. You've heard me talk about, along with Ryan Baker, who is, kind of the go-to CPA in the space for short-term rentals. We've talked about the STR loophole. We're going to kind of start here with what is the STR loophole. But if you want to get a deep dive on that, make sure to go watch that episode, listen to that episode with Ryan Baker. But today we have Rhett Gagon, and Rhett is the guy that Ryan talks about when he says you need to go get what's called a cost seg done. So first of all, before we even go into that, Rhett, thanks so much for being on the show today, man.
I'm pumped, Kyle. No, this is great. I love the opportunity. I wish I could see everybody, but I love talking about cost seg.
Yes, and we are live here in the 6-figure formula. So all of you 6FFers out there, really excited for what you're going to see here today. You're going to have the chance to ask questions to Rhett as well. If you're not a part of the 6-figure formula already, you need to be, because of these types of conversations that we're going to have today. You are going to have questions. I know there's going to be a question I'm going to miss that someone's going to be out there being like, wait, I want to know about that. So make sure you go to fearlesskyle.com/6FF to check that out. So Rhett, let's start with this. What is the STR loophole? We've talked about in other episodes, but can you just give a really quick overview on what that is? And also what's potentially changing with it in the upcoming years?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And from my perspective and from how it deals with cost segregation, the STR loophole is really something when you're talking investment properties, you're talking either short-term rentals, you're talking long-term rental, whatever those might be, right? Everybody knows you get to take some of that depreciation, but there are some limitations there's some limitations if you're, say, a passive investor, right? You're a doctor, or you have another job, right? That where your primary source of income comes in. And so, and this stems back, 50, 60, 80 years, when tax laws were changing. They had, a high income individuals buying properties, writing off all those, with those great benefits. But and so laws were put into place. It's important to understand, just in a nutshell, that things were put into place so that um, if you're going to take big deductions from real estate, you really needed to be tied to real estate. Now, the reason that there's a seemingly loophole with the short-term rentals is because they're treated as if you own a hotel property, right? It's look, there's not something there. It's so new. Airbnb isn't something that you even find in the tax code yet, right? I mean, it's so fresh, it's so new that there's no code written about it. But the closest thing that identifies in the tax code with a short-term rental is it is like a hotel property, where you have, shorter than 7-day type rentals. And so they're in allowing you to treat that as an individual company, an individual entity, as it were. And therefore, some of those qualifications, some of those necessities, that you have otherwise as a passive investor, kind of go out the window so far as we know it right now.
And what's important that I've learned through this whole process, guys, is what we're going to talk about with cost segregation is showing you how you're able to depreciate the property over a certain amount of years. Well, when we talk about the STR loophole, we talk about accelerating that depreciation, not getting extra depreciation, not something that you can go out and you can, get more depreciation than a long-term rental. It's just that you get that depreciation right away or within the first few years compared to being able to, expand that over 20, 30, 40 years. And what I know about investing is that money today is worth more than money tomorrow, right? If I have to wait longer for that money, then the value of that money goes down, or what I can do with that money, it isn't growing. Whereas if I have that money now, I can put it into investment and I can grow it. So when we talk about what I'm about to show you with a case study that Rhett did with me, the power of me having more money now is allowing me to multiply my money quicker. And so that's essentially what we're going to get into here in a second. But before we do, very generally, I want to make sure people understand, okay, we just talked about the STR loophole, but what is a cost segregation and how does that tie into the STR loophole?
Yeah, cost segregation as a whole is often, in my decade plus of experience, it's been misunderstood over time. It really is correctly identifying the assets within each property, each investment property. As you know, and as all your listeners know, there's a lot more to their building than just the shell and the structure, right? Cost segregation is the act of really identifying and segregating those costs and putting correct depreciable lives to them, so that you could be depreciating them correctly, rather than lumping them all together as a 39-year asset or a 27.5-year asset, and taking that depreciation over that period of time, thereby freeing up a significant amount of depreciation by correctly identifying what those are. And that's what a cost seg study does. It really identifies all of those hundreds of assets, those dozens of assets in each building, creating more depreciation for the investor.
Yeah, and that was something that was really interesting to me when I started understanding what a cost seg is. It's not, hey, you bought a house for $500,000 and here's how much you can depreciate. It's no, you bought a house for $500,000 and it's got a roof that's worth 10,000. It's got, the land that's worth 75,000. It's got this that's worth this amount, and this that's worth this amount, and so there's all these little subcategories within that house that are depreciated over different time periods and defined as different valuations. And so that's where it gets kind of complicated. And that's why when we look at short-term rentals, more of those categories, correct me if I'm wrong on this, right? More of those categories can be accelerated quicker than a long-term rental. Is that right?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
More in a short-term rental. The short-term rental, is more so referring to what I mentioned previously, right? Because I can take the same home. I can take a, and have one investor that makes it a long-term rental and another person a short-term rental, another investor short-term rental. And I'm like, the assets will be the same inside there, but but because you're using it as a short-term rental, you've opened up a door, right? You've opened up the doorway to allow you to take more against a different type of income that you have, instead of it just being against your passive income and all of your passive investments. I'm going to find those assets are what they are, right? And we're going to find them. But there's not necessarily more. You've opened up a different door is what you've done.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. I like you putting it that way. See, and again, guys, that's why I bring on the expert. I'm not the expert, right? So Rhett, I want you to get our case study up and ready. Before I share the screen, I'm going to tell people a story here. So, love my CPA. I'm sure a lot of you love your CPA. Here's the thing though. When it comes to CPAs, most of them that I've talked to just don't understand the short-term rental loophole. They think that they're doing it right, but at the end of the day, and this was the same experience I had with my CPA, I went to my CPA about a year ago and I said, are we cost segging these properties? And he said, yes. I said, are you using the STR loophole? And he said, there is no STR loophole. I was like, yes, there is. There definitely is. I need you to look into it. And after he looked at it, he said, I just don't feel comfortable with doing a cost seg. So if we ever wanted to do that, we're going to have to do it professionally. Well, he ended up finding Rhett. And then when we found Rhett, we said, okay, let's do this and let's compare what you've done, Mr. CPA, as an estimate versus what Rhett and his team can do legitimately. And we'll get into why you want to get a cost seg and why you want to do it professionally with a team like Cost Seg Authority with Rhett. But before we get into that why, let's look at the numbers. So Rhett, let me know, are you ready for me to share this screen?
Yeah, you bet.
Okay, cool.
And in all fairness to your CPA, I'm going to show a couple of things that we found after looking, after talking with Kyle's CPA and at Kyle's portfolio. Let me start down here.
So, and let me give a little bit of context. So I think we're showing 3 different case studies from me today. Number 1 is a property that we bought in 2022. So it is ready to be basically from the start cost segged. Number 2 is some catch-up properties that I bought in 2019, 2020 that we did an estimate cost seg with my CPA, but now we can catch up some of that we missed. And then I believe we're even going over another one that has had some had a bit of a burn situation to the property, and so we had to reconstruct the property, and now we're kind of taking that one on. So it looks like the first one we have up is the cabin that I have that we bought for $620,000, and you've got that case study up. So I'll let you kind of tell people what they're looking at here.
Yeah, no, that's great. As you can tell, so what you're looking at this screen, we like to present this at the beginning of every conversation we have. What we need to get minimal information, and then that we need on the property, and then we provide this to all those interested, so you can kind of see the value. Really here, he mentioned 620 was the purchase price. As everybody on the podcast knows, you can't depreciate land, so that's where we get to this depreciable basis less land, right? So in your on the box on the right. What you're looking at, I'm going to skip down here. This is a summary box on the left, the summary of benefits, but really to help you guys understand what you're looking at, I want to show this. Now, had Kyle not reached out, there's already a benefit to investing in real estate, a tax benefit, and all of you know that there's depreciation you're allowed to take, and over the period, either over 39 years or 27 and a half years, you're going to take some depreciation, and that's called straight line, which is what we see here on the left in the blue, from 2022 all the way down to when it fully depreciates. And you're going to see straight line just means here's a straight deduction. Every year you're going to get about the same. Well, the concept of correctly identifying your assets, there's a number of buckets that they fall into, right? And depending on the property type, this isn't just a short-term rental thing. This is all of you that invest in whatever it is. Kyle mentioned, some storage units we did earlier. And those are any investment property is eligible for this, and they fall into different buckets, right? In general, 90%, 95% of all projects fall into these 4 buckets. 5 years, 7-year assets in a cabin, not really so many 7-year assets, not really any that we're projecting, and then 15-year assets as well. And in this case, after taking a real quick look at it, rather than providing a $10,800 deduction in the first year, Kyle owns that. We estimate being able to find and pretty conservative estimate. That's a $93,000, almost $94,000 just in the 5-year assets. And those are going to be interior things, right? Like your flooring, your cabinetry, your a whole bunch of other things we might find, specialty electrical and whatnot. And your 15-year assets, typically your exterior stuff, right? So we anticipate rather than him having to take a $10,000 deduction, near $11,000 deduction, that's going to look more like a $147,000 deduction.
Yeah.
You all know, and this is the reason that cost segregation is as powerful as it is and growing like it is, because today, you tell me, I'll give you $1 today. I'll take your $1 today and give you that same dollar back in 20 years, in 30 years, and
it's worth
come out ahead every
third.
time, right?
Yeah.
So the power, the time value of money is an essential element to it, but I mean, this is a significant savings that we're talking about here. And the bonus depreciation is why those 5-year assets and those 15-year assets in 2022 is at 100%, and why he gets that all in 1 year.
Yep.
And that's a whole other, I could talk for another half hour just on bonus depreciation. But
yeah. And so here's the context that everyone needs to understand. And this is the magic right here. Keep this screen where we're at here. I know you said 147,000 there on the right-hand side in the green, but really what you quoted me at, or what your team quoted me at, is that increased depreciation of $136,319 right there. So that number, guys, compared to on the left-hand side, the 10,000, right? We're already 13xing that number. And when I went to my CPA, I said, hey, I want to compare apples to apples. What were you going to cost seg this at year one compared to what Rhett and his team were doing? And my CPA threw his hands up in the air and said, you know what? I'll tell you right now, I was going to cost seg it at $85,000. So we're getting an additional $50,000 of increased depreciation compared to what my CPA was going to do. The numbers on that in terms of savings, right? And that's where, like, people need to understand that doesn't mean I'm saving $136,000 or $51,000 more than what my CPA was going to do. It means that it's going to offset some of that income, the extra $51,000 of income that I create, which means that whatever bracket I'm taxed at, right, that's how much of the savings I'm going to have. So in my CPA's example, $85,000 of depreciation came out to right around $30,000 of tax savings, $30,000 extra dollars that I get in my pocket, which is phenomenal already, right? But with this example of $136,000, you'll see on that line right there on the right, tax savings, $51,460. I'm getting another $21,000 additionally in my pocket year one by doing a legitimate cost segregation on just this property. And here's the cool thing, guys. We bought this with a second home loan. So meaning that we only had to put 10% down. $620,000 property, put $62,000 into it. After closing costs, call it $70,000. We're going to save $51,000, which means we really only paid $19,000 for a property if you're really looking at the actual out-of-pocket expenses. So this is the power to me of this bonus depreciation, cost segregation, doing it, especially year one with the STR loophole. And this right here only cost me, and I'm sorry if I'm giving away the numbers here, Rhett. Don't quote me on this when you go to Cost Seg Authority, but this only cost me $3,000. So I'm spending $3,000 to save an additional $20,000 on top of what my CPA was going to do. And Rhett, what I want you to tell people right now is what's the peace of mind that people get by going and doing this with Cost Seg Authority versus just their CPA?
So the IRS has put in, I don't remember how many more, was it billions or millions of dollars into audits, right? This last session, they threw in a lot more there. When in the past, the percentages and the likelihood of you being audited, period, are slim to none. But I'll tell you, our experience in the less than 20 years, we've had roughly one a year and done 15-20,000 studies, right? They look at our report and they say, all right, let's move on to the next item, right?
Yeah.
So when a report is done and done well and done right and follows the points of a accredited study, the peace of mind that should come with that, and even if there is audit, we propose as part of our engagement that we want to be the ones defending it, because we know the law inside and out. In some cases, in this area, may be better than your CPA does, and we know what's in the report and why we took what we took. And so the peace of mind of knowing, hey, even if I get audited, they're gonna take the IRS to town. So
awesome. Okay, so the next question I had for you guys was, okay, this was a property that I haven't filed for taxes yet, because our deadline for taxes for 2022 is October 15th. So nothing's been filed. But what about all my properties that have been filed already? Is there a way to, and I mistakenly asked, is there a way to amend the taxes to go back and do it? You said we don't want to amend anything. We want to catch up what was missed. And so I want to show those numbers now on, there's 3 properties that I essentially gave to you guys and said, show me how much we can catch up on this.
Yeah. So I'm going to give some, credit to your CPA, who is one of the better ones that is even acknowledging the fact that rental properties, investment properties do have short life assets inside them. Many CPAs that we work, many EAs, tax preparers that we work with, who, whatever their credentials might be, simply don't mess with it. Don't bring it up. They don't know how to do it. They don't know what to do. They don't know who to refer to. They don't know if they can trust somebody. They don't have that trusted resource, right? Which is what we've been adamant about, getting in front of those tax preparers for the last 10 years, and to be that trusted resource. Because in your case, it's a little bit different. And what I suggested after looking at what he had done, he had already taken that 80,000 that you referred to on your cabin property was roughly in line with the percentage that he had done with others of your properties. And so I realized, you know what? There are some assets, those 15-year assets we're talking about. I don't see any of those being really, really looked at and touched at. And part of that is because when you buy property, the reality is, how are they supposed to know as a tax preparer how much of that asset should go to the roof, how much of that should go to the sprinkling system or the grass, right? Without that expertise, there's no way for them to know all that. And we don't fault them or blame them for that. They don't have that, right? So I saw this opportunity and said, look, you've probably got on one property another 9,700, roughly 10,000 that we could take here, which is what you see here on this on this asset. And then on another property, you had another $12,000, right? And because of the nature of the simplicity of what we were going to do here, we made it super cost effective for you too. Now we look at every property individually, price them individually based off the complexity of it. But we were able to do this, each of these at extremely cost effective, because we didn't need to do everything on these. But there's a piece that we could do at a significantly reduced price, and still provide you with what you need and the support behind it.
Yeah. So let's just add these up really quick, because especially from a tax savings perspective, right? Like that, at the end of the day, we can talk about depreciation and everything, and that's wonderful. But like, I want to know how much money I'm putting back in my pocket, right? Like that's the only number that matters to me. So this one in front of us, we're getting $7,100 of tax savings. What about that property above? What was that number at? It was, let's see, 10,800, right? So now let's round up to
4,000 tax savings.
Oh, sorry, 4,000. There we go. I was looking at the wrong one. So we're at like $11,000 of tax savings. And then this one was another 3,000. So basically another $14,000 or $15,000 of tax savings. And guys, I'm paying a total of that for $4,500. So I'm paying $4,500 to get, literally, it's like me going up to someone and saying, "Hey, I'll trade you my $1 bill for a $5 bill, and let's do that, about 1,000 times." And they say yes, right? Like it's about the simplest
Yeah.
investment that I ever could make is doing this, because again, I'm not going to just be like, cool, I went and got that extra, net $10,000 after paying for it and put it in my pocket or went on a bunch of vacations. No, I'm going to take that $10,000 and now I'm going to go reinvest it into something that's going to make that $10,000 turn into, $100,000 within the next 5 to 6 years. That's the power of this. And that's the power of, like, when you get that mindset, right, of how do I multiply money? Then every dollar that you can put in your pocket now is always going to look like $5, $10, $15 to you. And that's exactly why I'm so excited about this, is because I'm literally, with a couple transactions with Rhett and his team, I'm going to be putting an extra 50, 60, $70,000 of money in my pocket in year one. And I could literally go buy another house with that. So,
And do it all
I
over
guess,
again.
what's that? Yeah. Do it all
And do
over
it
again.
all over again.
Yeah, and just recycle this thing. Now, there's one more property that we had in here, and this was a unique one. My wife and I own this property, and it literally got burnt to the ground, which was a really unfortunate situation. But during the reconstruction of this, we spent through insurance about $341,000. And I said, "Well, Rhett, can you guys do anything with that? We've owned the property since 2014." And the answer was yes. So can you talk to me about this situation, especially if someone maybe has a property out there that they're either going through the same situation, going through maybe a flood situation, or maybe does that even equate to like just renovating the home and gutting it and redoing the whole thing?
Yeah, sure. Now, typically, and I don't know if exactly this is what happened, but you've heard of 1031 exchanges. This is
Mhm.
probably more in line of a 1033 exchange, which is you had your hand forced, and
Yeah.
the insurance company comes back and says, here's X amount. Here's what your new basis will be. Here's what you can rebuild for. And that's what, I don't know if that's exactly the situation, but it's very similar that we've seen, number of times over the years, very similar to that. And your date of in service goes in, changes at that point, and so, and your eligibility for bonus as well. So, in this case, we took those improvements, um, and basically ran it through the same calculations based off of the property type and whatnot, and um, we're able to generate, what we think will, we anticipate will be more than $70,000 of depreciation that he'll be able to take. And given the current laws and the current system, you notice it looks a little bit different. Given it's 2023, those that have been here are likely well versed with bonus depreciation and know that 80% is what you're eligible for this year. And so you can see that that's spread out. Um, the remaining 20% over their bucket life respectively. I like to point out, this increased depreciation, and those that are looking at that detail of benefits on the right, in parentheses, you're not losing that amount of money. You're just realizing, your depreciation is just going to be, you're going to you're front loading it, right? You're going to get a
Yeah.
ton. You're going to get 70,000 now, and frankly, the difference moving forward is going to be $2,000 after that you're not going to get. That instead of getting 12,400 every year, you're still, even after you take this big chunk, you still have depreciation you're taking every year
Yeah,
beyond that. So
exactly. And correct me if I'm wrong, and there's a reason I'm asking this question. This this is different from what we're looking at right now on this specific property, is different than if we were to turn it into a long-term rental, right? We're being able to bonus depreciate a lot of stuff because it's going to be a short-term rental, correct?
so even long-term rentals get bonus depreciation. The door that's open is with a short-term rental is what income you're able to offset,
Right.
with a short-term rental versus a long-term rental for a passive investor, right? Or but bonus does apply for short-term rentals, long-term rentals, commercial properties, whatever you might have. Um,
Can you go into that just a little bit deeper? If if we're talking about this door that opens for additional income, what's the difference? Just help me
Yeah, so
understand that.
it's allowing you to treat it's allowing you to treat it as essentially a, a a hotel type of company, a company that has, because we're thinking conceptually, right? We're thinking, okay, the way the tax code is written today,
Mhm.
there isn't something that says, okay, short-term rentals, uh, Airbnbs, there's not, those things aren't defined yet.
Right.
The only definition that's in there is a rental less than 30 days, right? Or a rental with an average rental of less than 30 days, or average rental less than 7 days, or average rental more than, and those are by definition what the tax code and the tax law is. And when you have those rentals, you have a different doorway that's open, meaning a short-term rental is treated, sorry, is treated like a, apologies,
You
thought I had it off, is treated is treated like a separate business. It's not depreciated on a tax form. It's not treated as it's not looked at as necessarily a passive investment. It's its own, um it can be treated like a hotel. Had you bought a hotel, that's a short-term rental, right? And it can be treated as such, therefore opening up the doorway to a different type of income. And if you have a CPA is going to be more eloquent in expressing that, but but that's the concept to
Yeah.
understand, is that you've got an extra door that you can open if you're putting it into a short-term rental.
And so here, the reason I asked all that is because I did go to my CPA and I said, okay, uh, his name's Connor. I said, Connor, if we do this as a long-term rental and you cost seg this, what are we looking at? He said tax savings about $10,000. And I looked at what you guys said, and we're looking at tax savings of this property of $26,613. That's a difference of $16,000, right? Which, if you say, well, you're going to go and buy furniture, and it's going to cost you $16,000 just to get it started. Well, the cool thing for us is we're actually getting rid of one of our arbitrage properties, which means we have an entire house of furniture that we need to do something with. We're moving it over to this property. So it's basically just the cost of labor of moving all this over. And because of that, we're going to save an additional $15,000 here, year one, that we're putting into our pockets. So this helped us as a family make a decision of, is this going to be a long-term rental or is this going to be a short-term rental? And so that right there is something that I'm, again, like all three of these scenarios, I hope open, everyone that's listening, Team Fearless, if you're listening, if you're watching this, I hope this is opening your eyes to just knowing that this option is out there for you. And so what I want to just kind of transition to here, Rhett, and I'm going to stop sharing the screen here, is your company, Cost Seg Authority. Can you talk about you guys as a company here really quick? And then I'll tell people how they can go and find you and kind of get this process started.
Yeah, we've been doing Cossack studies for just shy of 20 years. And, you know, with nearly 20,000, at some point you lose track of how many you're doing, right?
Right.
But 20,000 plus studies, and never making a change in an audit. So, fully, uh, we prepare every study, whether it's as small as, um, you know, just improvements we're talking, made to a property, or a skyscraper downtown Chicago, right, or a
Mhm.
hotel in New York. We're going to write all of the reports. Every one of those, we want to be protected, and so we have a fabulous team of engineers, of, other cost segregation professionals that are dedicated to getting you the most, that we possibly can. In our experience, most shy away from, this audit experience, or, are scared of that. What we have found through our experience has been, hey, this is what is being looked at, and we've actually been able to specialize, even within the cost segregation realm, on different court cases, that allow us to take different methodologies within the cost segregation realm, that have increased, the value of what we could find, subject to other cost seg companies out there. But, we want everybody to know beforehand what they're looking at, so we provide a preliminary analysis, gratis, for everyone, with just a little bit of information, so that you can, and prepare that proposal, so getting into it, okay, this is, before you're committed to anything, here's what you
Yeah.
can really expect. And always recommending you talk, this over with your tax preparer too. So,
Yeah.
and if they're unfamiliar with it, we want to be involved with them too, so that we can help them understand.
And again, guys, I'm going through this process with them right now, right? And this is what I've really enjoyed about working with Rhett's team is, number one, they worked with my CPA. There wasn't any of this, right? Like, they called my CPA, they compared apples to apples. I talked to my CPA. He said, yes, this property looks like it's worth it. This one only worth it if you are doing X, Y, and Z. And we got to work as a team together. Number two is, even after getting those estimates that they just showed you right there, that Rhett just showed you, I still am not being asked to pay for anything as they're starting work. They're going to go out and do the site valuations and all of the things that make sure those numbers are correct, so that that estimate lines up, or maybe even after that estimate, it's even better. And then we're pressing that green go button, and then we're paying. So it's literally like, it makes the decision so easy. There feels like there is absolutely no risk. Is there anything else that about the process, as someone is going and getting a cost seg analysis from you guys, that I left out there, Rhett, that you want to make sure to mention?
No, I think it's important. It's important to understand that, um, it's your tax preparer is essential to
Yeah.
this, and we work closely with them. I think a lot of, we've been in the industry long enough to know that there's value, that we provide in tailoring to them, so that they're not having to do a lot of work afterwards. We know a lot of not all cost seg companies are the same, and just as if you gave your all the information that you have to 5 different tax preparers, you likely get 4 or 5 different numbers back, right? Not all of the tax preparers are the same. In the
Yeah.
same way, in the same way, you know, it's important to understand who you're working with, um, on that front as well.
Cool.
So
Okay, guys. So I'm sharing my screen right now. You should be able to see it. Rhett, do you see my screen?
I see it.
Okay, cool. You're going to go to costsegalauthority.com, and then you're just going to scroll down just a little bit, and you'll see get a no cost benefit analysis. Costsegalauthority.com. Click on no cost benefit analysis. You're just going to fill out your information. Now, the key thing here is, when they get you on the call and they say, hey, how'd you find out about us? You're going to say, through the Fearless Investor podcast, Kyle with the Fearless Investor podcast. And they're going to give you the red carpet experience, right, Rhett?
That's right.
All right. Awesome. Guys, we're going to go ahead and keep it in here right now for the six-figure formula question and answer section. We've got a couple questions, including someone that actually needs to know about a case scenario for them. So this is going to be fun. And again, if you're not a part of this and you want to be a part of the six-figure formula, make sure you go check that out at fearlesskyle.com/6FF. Rhett, thank you so much for helping our audience to conquer the world of short-term rentals and showing us how we can save money with cost segregation. All right. Once again, go to costsegalauthority.com. You're going to click just a little bit lower on the screen there where it says get a no cost benefit analysis. And when you sign up for that call, when you get on that call, make sure you mention the Fearless Investor podcast or my name, so you can get that red carpet service. Guys, if you don't do anything for the rest of the year, right? We've got about 3 months left of saving money on taxes. If you do nothing the rest of the year in terms of buying property, at least do this. When I did this, it took the pressure off of my wife and I to say, oh, we got to buy a property before the end of the year to make sure that we're taking advantage of the depreciation. Now we say, hey, we're saving about 6 figures in tax savings this year. Now there's not that pressure of going and buying a house. Now we can let it organically happen and bring the right house, the right multiplex, the right commercial property to us, so that we're making the right investment. Go take a look. It's free. Give them a shot, costsegalauthority.com. That's going to do it for us here on the Fearless Investor podcast. We're helping you to conquer the world of short-term rentals. See you next time.